To go live. It's time.
Hi, Elaine. Hello, Karen.
Okay, let's go. Let's see how we're looking tonight. It's date night with Steve and Annette, and it's how to buy a house. And there we are. Annette's kind of off screen.
I'm coming.
She's scooting in. Look, we have spared no expense. We've got a fancy new logo right here. We've got our shiny new whiteboard. We've got our title slide up. This is low tech, high tech.
Awesome.
High tech, low tech.
Totally awesome.
It's stuff we can handle.
Okay.
It's stuff we can handle. Well, we're so glad to be with you tonight.
Yes.
And we've got a full list of things we want to cover. We have built a blog to accompany this topic.
Yes, we have.
And that, was it something I said?
No, I'll be right back.
So we are going to get started. But here, let me give you the intro on this, because everybody, at least everybody we know that is starting out financially, having some struggles. It's not easy to start out, but they want to buy a house. It's kind of the American dream.
Right.
It's kind of the dream anywhere, to have that stability where you live. And if you're like the average person coming out of college, you're carrying a lot of debt.
Actually, some of these millennials don't want to own a house.
That's true.
They want to live in an RV and travel the country or the world, right?
That sounds like a good idea. Maybe
thank you.
Maybe for
Not
a month or
for
two.
Me. Not for
Anyway,
me.
do you want to buy a home now or in the future? And that's an awesome goal, but what if your credit isn't stellar? What if you've got some dings? What if you've been late on some student loans or some credit card debts, or maybe you had a car repossessed?
Medical bills.
Yeah, medical bills are terrible, but it's not insurmountable. Well, we're going to talk about a way to kind of fast track it, how to work your credit so that you can buy a home, so that you can buy one with a decent interest rate, because there are people out there who will lend anybody money, but what the rate is going to be the clinching factor. So buying a house with bad credit can be a challenge. If you're ever dreamed of buying a home, or you're struggling with your credit score, don't lose hope, because we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to share some programs that are out there. We're going to share some ways to redeem your credit, to get it helped out. And we have everything is on our blog today.
Yes.
The blog is of the same title as this program, and it's going to cover a lot of ground. So we're going to cover some of it, but not all of it, because that blog is pretty long.
It is.
Very well organized.
Yes.
Pretty well written. We had a lot to do with that. But anyway, let's talk about it. Let's talk about number one.
I'm trying to get to the comments.
Let's talk about credit score.
Okay.
So that's point number one. And a lot of you know this, but we're just going to go over what your credit score is made up of. And, we taught our kids early on, we didn't really focus on credit because we didn't borrow a lot of money. The only time we ever borrowed money was to buy our house. And we paid that off really rapidly. But as our kids were growing up, we realized that credit score was kind of important.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your credit score made up of?
Okay, it's made up of any lines of credit that you might have. It's made up of paying your bills on time, and that would include, if you have any credit cards, your mortgage or your rent payments, your utilities, your car loans, your student loans. Obviously, how you're paying on all of those things affects what your credit score is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they also count the number of cards you've opened in the last 12 months.
Or accounts, not just credit
the
cards.
age of your cards.
Yeah.
The variety, the kinds of cards you have. And the new thing is they want you to use less than 30% of what your borrowable allowable is.
So if you have a $1,000 credit line and you stay below $300 on that,
right,
that actually helps improve your credit score. If you go over that, they're concerned that you won't be able to pay it off,
right,
or it's going to put a strain on your finances.
Now, if you've been working on your credit, if this is an issue in your life that you've been working on and you've been making payments on time, you can go to some of your creditors, and ask them to raise the borrow ceiling, the credit limit.
Okay, so like if you had borrowed $500 and you had a $1,000 limit, so you're over the 30%, and you asked them to increase your
credit limit,
your limit, and they raised it to $1,500, all of a
Mhm.
sudden you'd be right at 30%.
Correct.
If they raised it to $2,000, you'd be really doing good.
Correct.
Now, we're going to put our caveat in here because we don't think it's the smartest thing for your finances to pay the credit card,
To carry a balance.
to carry a balance,
To
and
carry
pay
a
interest
balance.
every month.
Definitely not.
It's great to use credit cards if you pay it off and you get the points. But if you're paying interest, we agree with Dave Ramsey, Larry Burkett, all these guys that said, look, stop using the credit cards until you can control your spending, get that stuff paid off, and
we're going to
just
talk
stop
about
paying
that
interest.
later on, right? We're going to give them some
Yeah.
resources.
Right.
Okay, so what is a good score? We did some research and it said if you have 750 or higher, your credit score is excellent. If you have 700 to 750, your credit is good. 650 to 699 or 700, your credit is fair.
And this is where you're going to get into paying higher interest for things.
Right. 600 to 649, 650 is poor, and below 600 is pretty bad, according to the credit score bureaus today.
Credit bureau. And there's 3 of them. It's Experian, TransUnion, and I can't remember the third one.
Now, where can you check your credit score? If for free, we've got some options. You can go
We'll give you
to
links for
Credit Sesame, which this is all in our blog, and Steve put up the link for our blog. Or you can go to Lexington Law, and did you put a link there?
I'm going to give you a
He's
link.
going to give you a link right now. They have a free consultation if you have some credit issues and some things that need to be cleaned up, and you need some help because you're overwhelmed and you don't know where to start. And they will have some of that stuff for you. Did we start out by saying the sponsor of our show today?
No, we didn't.
Okay. Our show tonight is being sponsored by Lexington Law, and they are some really awesome people to work with, and they've got some great tools and resources to help all of you out there. So they are worth checking out.
And we'll talk a little more about them. We aren't forcing this issue at all. Lexington Law is made up of people just like you and us who want to make a living, and their goal is to help people clean up their credit score. And they're lawyers. They're a legal team. They are trusted people. We actually have met numerous people who work there. Our daughter Becky was at a job fair once, and I went with her and had some great conversations with a couple people here in Phoenix who work for Lexington Law, and I was really impressed with their desire to help people get their credit straightened out so they could move on with life and buy houses and things like that. Okay, so we've talked about what your credit score is made up of, and that's pretty common information. You can find that in a lot of places, but it's included in the blog. But what about if you get your credit score or get your credit report? Now, the credit score is different. The credit score is your number that gives you a rating from, like around 600 up to about 830 or 850. I can't remember what the highest end is. That's your credit score. But your credit report is made up of a list of all of your creditors and anybody who's reported on your borrowing or payment habits. Now, the thing is that if you're going to get a loan, the creditor who you're trying to qualify with is going to pull a credit report. And on the credit report, they're going to see everybody that you've been making payments to. And they're going to see if that information is good or bad. And there's a possibility that some of that information could be incorrect. And if it's incorrect, you may not be able to get the loan you want for a house, or it may raise the rate you have to pay. So that's why we're going to talk about cleaning it up. And this isn't really hard unless you have a lot of bad marks on your credit report. And you're not going to be able to clean up things that are honestly, you haven't made a payment in 3 months, 6 months, whatever. That's the truth. You can work to remedy that by making payments. But what we're talking about here is erroneous reports that hurt your credit.
Right.
Okay.
And there's more than people think.
There are.
Yeah.
There are. You could be the victim of identity theft.
Right.
And if that happens and there are charges on there that you're working to get written off because of identity theft, yeah, we'll get to that. But so there's different ways you can deal with this. And you can try dealing with it yourself. And you can send a letter to the 3 credit reporting bureaus, and that's Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And actually, I'm going to give you links to their pages where you can actually contest or request to start the dispute process, because that's the first place to start. And each of these credit reporting bureaus have a link on their site, or a page on their site, where you can do that. And I just have to get the links here because I didn't change the text to a link. So we're going to give you that in a second. Annette, can you kind of pick up while I do that?
Sure. There's several people out there, categories of folks that can use some credit repair help. And we've just become aware of some of these ourselves. And I'm happy that services are out there. So if you are part of the military and you have creditors hounding you, there is something called the Civil Relief Act. Creditors are not allowed to come after you if you're serving in the military. And a lot of folks...
Well, they could, but there are rules
Right.
about how they can do it. And we're going to give you a link to the page. It's called the Service
Member
Members-
Civil Relief Act.
Yeah.
If you're going through a messy divorce, that's another thing. Sometimes credit repair can be helped with that as you're sorting out who owes what. Student loans. If you are behind with student loans, there's all rules. I mean, we don't know the nitty-gritty of all the rules. We just know that they're out there and there's help for that situation. Medical expenses, identity theft, credit card debt. Lexington Law has a free ebook. Did you get that up by any chance?
I'm still wrestling with this one because it's too long. The link was too long, so I've got to do it in two parts.
Okay.
So there we go. And that's on YouTube.
Okay.
Let me go over here and get it up on Facebook, and they should be able to take a longer link.
Uh-oh, said couldn't recognize your data. Is that okay? We're fine. Okay, so as Steve's getting up those links
Okay,
for
there we
you, have any of you been helped by?
Have you disputed things on your
Right.
credit report and won? Because really, the first step is if there's something on your credit report that is inaccurate. It could be your address, your name. It could be how much you owe. It could be that you haven't paid it off.
Mhm.
It could be a lot of things like that. Is to contact the creditor.
Yes.
First step, contact them. I would encourage a phone call.
Yes.
And if you can, this is what we do when we talk about paying off debt. Get the name of the person you're talking to and deal with one person.
Yes.
Be polite.
The same person
but
all the time.
Be firm. Keep their name. Make a log of who you're talking to when you talk to them. And just say, look, this is inaccurate information. I have proof that I paid this off, or I have proof that I didn't charge this because I was in this city and that charge is from another city. Dispute it. If you don't get satisfaction, then start the dispute through the credit bureau, and you'll have to provide information to qualify what you're saying, and you should be able to beat it. But if you're dealing with a lot of stuff, let's say you're in the Service Member Relief Act area where you've been out of the country for a while, serving military, and there have been some blotches on your credit, you may need some help.
And I need to apologize. I may look distracted, and it's because I'm trying to answer responses on Facebook, and Facebook is giving me a new message tonight.
What's it saying?
And I don't know what to do. Like, it will not allow me to make comments. So I'm really sorry to all of you that are... No, like it just says something like, pin the comment.
Oh.
And
You can't respond right now while it's live. You will be able to later.
Okay, so I'm sorry if there's a new thing coming up on Facebook and it has distracted me tonight, and I apologize because this is a new message that I've never seen before, and I'm a bit frustrated because I'd like to interact with all of you and answer your comments. And so we're just going to go through our outline, stay focused, and we will go back through at the end.
We can talk about them. Like Denise talks about getting a free credit report from Credit Karma.
Right, that's
which is
another
one that you can do that with. And we're going to talk about secure lines of credit later on.
And Kim asked if we're streaming live on YouTube at the same time, and the answer is yes. So I'm sorry, Kim, I went to write to you, and my Facebook page wouldn't let me do that tonight, and I don't know why. So it's kind of strange.
But
anyway,
this video will stay on YouTube, and you could share it there. You can watch it again. If you want to share what we're sharing now, that
yes,
would be great.
Please do. If you think, and you can even send it as a message. Share it as a message to someone you think if they're struggling with credit, and this might be something they're interested in. Okay, so how to raise your credit score.
So let me give you this book.
Okay.
Because this is a book. This is not a small ebook.
Okay.
This is a well-written book written by a guy who's a PhD.
Okay.
And then there's two other people on the Lexington Law team that were lawyers that contributed to this
nice.
book. And it's called
Lexington Law.
No. It's called. Hold on. I'm going to show you a picture of it actually because I have it all queued up here. It's right here. It's called Credit Revolution: Path of a Smart Consumer by John Heath Esquire, Dr. Randy Padwar, and Jason Orvis. And it's 150 some pages. It talks about all your rights as a borrower,
Nice.
how you can contest your credit, how you can be smarter about using credit,
Mm-hmm.
and it's free,
Wow.
and that's
Great
that's a pretty good
resource
deal.
for all of you.
So
Okay.
I'm going to give you that link here, and this is available on Lexington Law's website. They made actually a special landing page just for us, free ebook.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep going because
Yes.
we're 15 minutes into the broadcast. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to raise your credit score. So if you're struggling with bad credit, you've got to work on it, obviously. So there's something called a secured credit card where you can go to the bank, give them $500, and they'll give you a credit limit of $500.
They'll hold the $500 in the bank account.
Basically, you're giving them collateral. So they know that the credit card, as you use it, can be paid if there's
Now,
any problems.
The $500 stays in the bank,
Right.
but you make payments, and
You
they
charge
hopefully-
stuff and make payments.
Right. They don't take the money out of the bank account to pay the credit card.
Correct.
That money stays there. And basically what you're doing is you're proving that you're responsible enough to make your payments, and eventually maybe you put a little more money in there, raise your credit
Yes.
limit, whatever.
Okay, so making payments on time. If you're struggling, and we were gonna mention these at the end, but I'm gonna mention them now. If you are struggling, oh yeah, we're on number 3 already. Raise your credit score. Okay, if you're struggling with, making payments on time, our first book is available at all the public libraries. America's Cheapest Family Gets You Right on the Money. It has a whole chapter on budgeting. Talks about all kinds of areas of household finances, and it will help you save money. So I'm really quick going to read through some of them. It talks about groceries, budgeting, of course, cars, housing, utilities, debt, medical expenses, clothing, entertainment and recreation, vacations.
But the biggest and most important chapter
Right.
in there is paying off debt,
Right.
the debt chapter,
And budgeting.
And budgeting. Because basically, if you set up a household budget, you'll be able to create an excess, no matter how little or how much you earn, you'll be able to create an excess. And by creating the excess, you'll be able to pay off that debt quicker.
Right.
So we have a whole article on how to pay off debt quickly, and that's on the website. So just search for debt
Right.
and work on paying off your creditors. And we recommend the same method that Dave Ramsey does, although we started teaching people about it while Dave was still in debt, which is the debt snowball, paying everybody something, but paying the largest chunk on the smallest amount you owe.
Right. Okay. So next we're at number 4. I can write that while you start talking. Number
So
4.
if you've worked to improve your credit, see now here, let me back up. We don't recommend, if you have a bad credit score, to push forward on trying to buy a house, because what that's going to do is it's going to end up costing you a lot more. If anybody will loan you money, you may have to go to a private lender, which is going to charge you 10 to 30% or 50% more. And we don't want you to have to do that. But there are programs out there where you can get a loan with less than stellar credit. So there's FHA loans,
Mhm.
which require a smaller down payment and not as high a credit score. And we're going to give you, well, that's in the article, so we won't give you links to
Right.
that. But those are readily available, and most lenders will provide those for you if you qualify. If you've been in the military,
Mhm.
VA loans are a great deal. Some of them require no down payment, which we
Correct.
don't recommend.
No, we don't.
But if you can work on your credit score and you
Right.
can get a VA loan, that would be a great deal. Now, the thing we do recommend, and this helped us buy our home because we didn't have credit cards, we
Mhm.
didn't have a credit score when we bought our first home, but we had a good chunk of money to put down. We put 15% down
Right.
on our first home.
And if you can ever get to the point where you're able to have a budget, clean up your credit score, pay down your debt, and we have some blogs that talk about how you can earn money, lots of different
Mhm.
ways that you can earn money
Right.
to generate money to help pay down debt, if that's
Okay.
what you need, okay? But what I was going to say is if you can amass a sum of 20%, then you save money on PMI also. But we're not
Right.
going to go into that. It's just mortgage insurance.
Right. It's
Um,
required anytime you don't put more than 20% down on a house, you'll have to carry private mortgage insurance,
Right.
which raises your monthly payment.
Okay, now when we went to buy this house, we were pretty much debt free at that
We were
point.
debt-free.
We even paid off our first house.
Right.
And so the owners own this house full and clear, and they wanted to carry the mortgage. And they asked us to fill out a list of our debts.
Mhm.
And at that time, we didn't have a whole lot of credit, but we didn't have any debts.
We have never had that.
Yeah. And so they looked at our debts and they said, "Really?" And we said, "Really?"
And we told them we paid off our first home in 9 years.
Right. And so they carried the mortgage for us. So we got a private lender basically to
Right.
carry. And then they cut us an even sweeter deal and said if we came up with a bonus once a year, like a $10,000 payment, which we could with your commission structure at the
Mhm.
time, then they would re-amortize the loan.
Recalculate.
Recalculate
the payment.
The Cape, yeah.
So
which was
we started
great.
off with a $1,800 a month payment
Mm-hmm.
because we borrowed 200 and some thousand
Mhm.
dollars to buy the house, and this was 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we quickly sold our other house, put $70,000 more on the house, and so our payment dropped to $800.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kept paying off the house quickly, and every time we put a $10,000 chunk on,
Chunk.
our payment dropped. So
Right.
we ended up with a $500 a month house payment, but we were paying a lot more, and that's how we paid the house off
Right.
rapidly here.
Okay.
So, but if an owner will carry the mortgage, they're going to be a little more lenient, and your credit score won't be as important, but it'll still be considered. And what we did is we made our payment to a title company,
Mhm.
and the title company held the money and then distributed it to the owner, previous owner, and to taxes and insurance. And eventually we ended up doing our own taxes and
Mhm.
insurance because they couldn't divide by 12. So point is, you can shop for loans even if your credit is less than stellar. And if you find somebody who's willing to carry the house, that's good.
Right.
But just know that you need to be responsible with your payments. Now let's talk about first-time home buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number 5.
Okay.
And when we were first buying our first home, we didn't have much money. I think I was earning about $23,000 a year. This was back in 1985. We had saved $7,500, which was a lot of money for us on $23,000. And that was going to put 15% down. We bought a bank repo. But before we found the repo, before we started looking for repos, we were looking at first-time homebuyer programs. And most cities and states have grants available
Mhm.
that help with the down payment or give you a very low interest rate if you're a first-time homebuyer or you haven't owned a home in like 3 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there are all kinds of programs, and we're going to give you a link to the website, the HUD website, where they have a list of programs for first-time homebuyers. And I'm just going to throw that one up now. This is really helpful. And, when we were buying that first home, we didn't have access to the internet.
We
in this
didn't
degree,
know
and so
about all these programs.
we could only find the one in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
But these are great, especially if you have kids that are looking to buy homes or you haven't had a home in 3 to 5 years. There's another one called, oh, this is cool. This is really a cool program. It's called HUD's Good Neighbor Program. And this is designed for firefighters, policemen, or police people, teachers, and EMTs who work or serve in a specific geographic area. HUD will help them with, I believe it's like no down payment and a lower interest rate. And so you want to check into that one. And this one's listed in the blog too. So if you know someone who is one of those first responders or a teacher, this kind of program is a real bonus. And we've been looking for these types of programs because we know that buying a home is expensive,
Yes.
but that there's money out there. This is just like college scholarships.
Yes.
It's going to take some work, but there are millions of dollars available for buying a home. And if you just work a little bit, you're going to find a great deal.
Right.
Another one is called, why don't you read that?
Home Path Loan from Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And
It's just discounted
foreclosures,
interest.
basically, it looks like, because it says save on foreclosures.
Yes.
So it's if you want to look for foreclosures and you don't mind doing a little bit of the work, like painting or repairing drywall or
Putting baseboards in.
Yeah, there's some great deals out there.
So our first home was a bank repo.
Yes, it was.
Now, this was in 1985, and at the time, interest rates were 13%. The bank was owned by Western Savings. The house was owned by Western Savings, and we happened on it with our realtor. It had fallen out of escrow,
Correct.
and we've been watching.
They really
the
wanted to
list.
get rid of it.
Right, but you can actually call banks and ask for their REO department. It's a real estate owned, realtor owned or real estate owned property, and they'll have a list of homes that they have on their books that they've repossessed. And the banks don't want that. They want the houses returning money. They want them in somebody's hand making money.
Right. They don't want them just sitting.
So the bank gave us a no, what did we call it? There were no closing costs on the loan.
That's right.
It was 2 percentage points less
It was a
than
great
the going
deal
rate.
for the time.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So it was an 11% loan instead of a 13%
Yes.
loan. It was a 30-year mortgage. And we eventually refinanced that when rates dropped. But that's what allowed us to get into the house and
Right.
pay it off quickly. So it really is,
Right.
it was an as-is home. So we had a group of people come over and help us paint and clean up the house. But it worked, and we were able to pay
Okay,
it off
there's
in 9
two other
years.
programs, and we'll put up links later. One is called Operation Hope. It's operationhope.org/home-buyers.
I'll put it up now.
Okay, and they're helping people with low credit or low income, realize the dream of home ownership. They have assistance in 21 states. There's also something called the National Council of State Housing Agencies, and this is an excellent resource for first-time home buyers with poor credit. And that's ncsha.org. And Steve will put up all the links for that so that you have them. Hi, Helene.
And these are also on the blog. Oh,
Yes.
This is so encouraging to see so many of you watching right now.
Yes.
And putting comments up.
Yes.
Oh, I got another one that's too long, so it won't go up on YouTube. There we
Okay.
go. I got it.
All right. So, final point, number 6. I'm going to get that up there. Let me get
Wait,
that up.
while you're putting that up, I want
Okay.
to talk about our kids.
Well, that's in number
that's in
6.
there. Okay, so we're going to tell a story about our youngest daughter, who's very much like Annette. She's a pistol. She's a go-getter. She doesn't slow down. And home shopping. Okay, there we go. That's number 6.
Yes, it is.
So how do you actually look for a home? What do you do?
Well,
What's the
Abby,
process?
our youngest daughter, Abby, and her husband, Colin, wanted to buy a house. And so they found a realtor through their church, and the realtor knew about something here called HUD Homes.
Right.
And so they got an amazing deal. It needed to be painted,
Mhm.
but the flooring was good,
Oh, beautiful.
and it needed to be cleaned,
It
obviously.
was dirty.
And the landscaping was pretty
It was
neglected.
dead.
It was neglected. And so they got a great deal. They moved in, and they could sell like today, and their house would be worth more
Right.
than what they paid for it.
That house only required 5% down. Now, we encourage people to put more down, but our kids are
Right.
go-getters, and they were in a hurry to get in there. And they did it 2 years ago, and they're working on the house now. We've been over there a number of times doing projects and just for dinner.
Right.
But the cool thing was, it was a HUD home. They got a home warranty with it. It was in decent shape. We got a home inspection. Water heater needed to be replaced, but they
Right.
did that, and it was good.
Right. So make sure you do get a home inspection, and if you can negotiate when you're buying a house for a home warranty, that's another great thing to have. When we bought this house, we negotiated for a home warranty. They didn't check it out first, and there was pretty much a dead dishwasher in here when we moved in, and I called up and asked about it, and they said, "Look, you have a home warranty. It's our fault for not checking out the place, and so we're going to get you a new dishwasher." And so we got a new dishwasher. The home warranty paid for itself immediately. Even though we didn't pay for it, it paid for itself immediately with a new dishwasher. And the other thing I want to encourage you, there's 2 more things about shopping, house shopping. One is, don't borrow as much as the bank says you can borrow. Look for a house that is less than whatever the going. I think right now they let you borrow 5 times your income.
Mhm.
Don't do it. Go for 3 or 4 times. Just don't max yourself out like that. That's the first thing.
And the reason is you'll be able to pay it off sooner. you'll be able to live better
Right.
because you won't be house poor. Having a huge payment and staying awake at night wondering if you're going to be able to make it
Right.
is not the way to live.
The other thing is the average home buyer buys after looking at 4 or 5 houses. I know Steve and I are a little extreme. So
Weird.
with the first house, we thought we wanted to live where he was working at the time.
Mhm.
And so we must have looked at 20 houses in that area and then decided, you know what, we better not do that. He may not work here for the rest of his life. So we looked at a different part of the valley, and it's a good thing we did because he didn't end up working at that job for his whole life, and we would have been very far away from family and friends. So we moved up by where family and friends were living. We looked at a total of like 40 houses when we found our first house, but we knew when we walked in the door
Mhm.
that was our house. And even with the house we're in now, this is our second house, it was the same thing. Now, for this one, we looked at 20 houses. And we looked at enough houses. So literally, when we saw this house, I almost cried. I wanted this house so bad. I loved this
Now,
house.
when we went into each house, we had a clipboard.
A
with
wish
us.
list.
We had a wish list written ahead of time. It said the
Mhm.
kind of roof we wanted, but we didn't
Yes.
want any palm trees.
Yes.
It said we wanted fireplace, we wanted wood floors, all that stuff. And this house met all of those with the exception of a tile roof.
Yes.
But
But
other than
now
that,
we're glad we
to
don't
go.
have that.
Right.
But yeah, we did make a wish list, a fireplace,
Mhm.
just all the things we were looking for. And it needed some elbow grease. It needed cleaning. It needed painting. It needed paneling taking down. But that's just time and
So
no problem.
One of the things to remember is that realtors get paid on commission.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, that commission can be negotiated. Number two, because they're paid on commission, the more expensive the home they sell you, the more money they make.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're supposed to be representing you, but if they push you to buy a more expensive home than you should be buying and you feel comfortable buying, I would say fire them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a friend. You don't want that pressure. This is a stressful enough decision. Make sure that you have money set aside, that you're not spending all of your savings, because there are going to be things that are going to come up. You're going to have to buy
Yes.
appliances. You're going to want to buy window coverings, things like that. So you need several $1,000s held in reserve
To help set up the
to
house.
set up the house for moving expenses and things like that.
Okay.
What we did when we paid off our first house, we started taking the payment we were making and we just started socking it away in our money market account. And so by the time we were ready to buy, we had $20,000 saved for buying the house, and that became our down payment. And because we had a good down payment, and because the owner carried,
Yes.
the bonus to us was that we didn't have to refinance this house after we sold the old house and took the money and rolled it into
Right.
this. So be patient, work on that credit, get the free ebook from Lexington Law.
Oh, there's so many more things we could talk
Yeah.
about.
Let's
yeah.
go and see if there's any questions.
Right. I
Um,
can't answer any of mine.
Well,
So
we can talk through them.
okay, you go to YouTube. I'll look at. Throw up questions if you have questions
Or
about
tell
this.
us how you bought your home. We'll read it and laugh about some of the stories, because I'm sure some of you got great deals too.
But we do want to wrap up.
So
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Sexy
L
says,
Just
I
say-
bought my first home through HUD.
Oh, great.
Only needed cosmetic updates. It was a condo with a home warranty and $1,000 down.
Wow,
a
that's
great
awesome.
idea, yeah. Let's see who else. Home Path Loans, that's us. Anything else?
Mary Jane.
Never had my own home, always rented. I would love the security of my own home, Deb says, but it's never been possible with very low income. Just hit the big 5-0 2 days ago. Well, happy birthday, Deb.
Wow.
And, who knows? Maybe that's not where you're supposed to be, because paying rent is a lot easier. When something breaks, you call the landlord.
Right.
And if that's what you can afford, that's awesome.
Right. Okay, Mary Jane says she has her own home, but now she has bad credit. So there's so many things you can do, Mary Jane, to fix your credit. So just work on that. You'll be able to do that. Okay, so let's wrap up the show. We talked about budgeting. Budgeting is essential. If you're struggling with bad credit, that means things aren't getting paid on time. If you have a written budget, ours is not high tech. It's very low tech. It's handwritten. It takes us 4 hours a month, 2 hours twice a month to get this all taken care of, but we know exactly where what we have to spend in all our different budget categories. We don't recommend that you have more than like 20, 21 budget categories.
So
We
if
don't
wanna
recommend.
we want to go out on a date.
We look at our recreation account, we see if we have money, and then we figure out what restaurant we want to go to.
Mhm.
Right. And we don't have 12 bank accounts either. We know there's a lot of people out there that have different bank accounts for
We call them
everything.
sinking funds.
And that's too much work. I mean, we have enough we have enough struggle just balancing 2 checking accounts a month. We don't want 12. And really, if you have a budget, you don't have to worry about having separate accounts because you have almost every category that you need accounted for and having money in it. So you don't feel like you have to steal from Peter to pay Paul. So our first book here talks about every area of household finances. And then our budget book talks obviously about budgeting. And we've got a sweet deal on our website if you buy both our first book and the budget book. The first book almost ends up being free. So it's a great deal. If you buy them from us, we can autograph them for you. There's a few other things we want to talk to you about. There is an online bank called Citibank, and there's a link in this article.
It's CIT Bank.
CIT Bank, and a minimum deposit is $100. It's FDI insured, and you can earn 1.75% interest, which is amazing.
Like 15 to 20 times what the going interest rate is right now. And that is a great place to put the money you're
Yes.
saving for a down payment.
Yes.
And that's what we recommend. Get the
Right.
interest on it because making 0.1% interest when you're saving $10,000 or $20,000 isn't worth it. But
And
making 10 times that, that's worth it.
And remember that Lexington Law, through the link in our blog, offers a free consultation. So if you have, credit issues and they're kind of messy or stressful, take advantage of that free consultation and find out if Lexington Law can help you.
They're we like I said, we've met a lot of these people from Lexington Law, and they're real people.
Yes, they are.
And I specifically asked Kyle when we were putting this up because you have to get the free ebook, you have to put your email and your name in there. And it says, they may call you and all this stuff. And I said, Kyle, I don't want our friends being harassed by phone solicitors. I said, look, if you tell them to stop calling or you tell them you want to get off the email list, they will take you off. These are lawyers.
But
They
he
know
said
the
also
rules.
that the chances of them being called is very slim. They just have to have it in there. So don't worry about that. Take the jump. Get the free consultation. There's
Especially if you've got bad
there's
marks on your
legal
credit.
experts here that can give you just really some good advice.
I mean, if you've got a divorce situation where your ex-spouse has been spending money and it's on your credit report, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Identity theft, oh, that's so messy, and you're already feeling violated. This would be a good time to get some help.
Right.
And so if you're feeling beat up and you don't feel like you can take this on either because emotionally it's stressful or because the number of things on your credit report to be dealt with are really difficult, get some help.
Yes.
We've helped people work through that, and emotionally, we're fragile emotionally. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with saying, I can't handle this.
Right. And the free consultation at Lexington Law can also help with medical bills. We covered all of that. I don't know what point, but you may want to go back and listen to the broadcast again if you came in late or in the middle. We've talked about 6 different points. We discussed medical under point number 2. So, go back, watch the broadcast, read the blog. There's links to the blog. It is a very long blog because there was just so much to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for joining us tonight. Next week, we are doing Facebook Live on Friday night, and we are going to be talking about games.
Well, this is going to be a
Not
light
just
subject.
board games, card games, number games, games for your family that no matter what size your family is, if it's small, if it's big, if it's gigantic and you have group games, we're going to be talking about all the games that we play and love and why.
You're right at this table.
Yes.
Last night,
Yes.
we played a game.
We did.
We'll talk about it next week. But we had people from 2 continents here.
Yes, 2 different countries.
Some of them didn't even speak English.
That's
very well.
right, and they could still play the
And
game.
they played this game.
Yes, they did.
And they laughed.
And on next week's show, we are going to also play a guessing game with you. And I was thinking through how we could do it.
Mhm.
Like we could do gestures, and you've got to get guys to log into this broadcast because you can get the guys on your team because you got to get them to respond to the cards. Like you've got to talk to them and get them to say certain words, and so you can.
I don't know that that's going to work.
I think it might. We'll figure out how to do it, but
gonna-
we want to play with you guys next
We're going
week.
to have some games that you guys can participate in.
Yes.
So and then we'll yeah. Because
It'll be-
some of them we end up just laughing until we cry. So
Right. So
hopefully
it'll be a lot
you'll-
of fun.
You'll be able to do that.
Okay.
That's next week. It's Steve
And Annette Economides from
from
MoneySmartFamily.com,
MoneySmartFamily.com.
thanking Lexington Law for sponsoring our show tonight, and we
Thanking
will.
you for being here.
Yes, thank you all for joining us.
And you
And-
you over there who are washing the dishes. Thank you for.
And
coming.
if you have any more comments, please leave them up, and we will respond to them.
That's right.
Okay, see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.